All right, and we are recording. Perfect. So, real quick, we're going to talk about how to use a t-table. I realize right now I'm on a z-table chart, but we're going to talk about how to use a t-table. So, as we look at the z-table, we basically have the z values. Okay, so you've got a z value of negative 2.33. You go down to negative 2.3, over to 3, and there's your answer. A t-table works a little bit different. All right, here's a t-table. If you notice, on the left and right side, there's not t-values. Okay, the t-values are actually here inside the table. So the z-table, the z-values are on the outside, and you're finding the p-value. Here, your t-values are inside the table, and your p-values are along the top. It doesn't give you an exact p-value. Okay, we'll get into how to use this here in a second. That's kind of what we're doing right now, actually. So let me annotate so we can draw a little bit on here. So first thing we have to do is go through and calculate the t-value. The t-value that we're going to use. Okay. So for this example, let's say that we get a t-value of 0.883. Then we have to go through and calculate the degrees of freedom. Let's say we have a sample size of 10. If our sample size is 10, what will our degrees of freedom be? It would be 9. Okay, so step 1, step 2. Now step 3, we use the table. So we need to go to the degrees of freedom of 9 row. So DF, those are our degrees of freedom. That is this row right here. There you go. So that is our degrees of freedom 9. So everything along there is what we're going to be looking at. Okay. Now we need to look for the t-value 0.833. That's right here. Okay. And we go up, and that's going to tell us what our p-value is. Now, if you notice, there's a 1-tail and a 2-tail. Well, are we a 1-tail or are we a 2-tail? So there's technically an extra step. You got step 1, step 2. Step 3 is you need to know if you're 1 or 2-tail. All right, so we got 1-tail or 2-tail. Let's say that we are a 1-tail. 1-tail. Well, in that case, we've got our degrees of freedom. We have our t-value. We come up, and here is our p-value. The p-value for this case would be 0.2. Okay, let's try that again with some different numbers. Step 1, we got to get our t-value. Step 2, we have to identify degrees of freedom. Step 3, we need to identify if we are 1 or 2-tail. So let's say for this problem, our t-value is going to be 2.36, and our degrees of freedom are going to be, let's say we had a sample size of 15, so we're going to drop down to 14 for degrees of freedom. And finally, for 3, are we a 1 or a 2-tail test? Let's say we are a 2-tail test. Okay, those are the numbers we're going to use. So I come over to my degrees of freedom, 14. Now we go to our t-value, 2.36. And as we look, there's not a 2.36. So do we just throw our hands up in the air, say, oh, well, it's the end of the world, we can't solve this? Or do we actually try? Well, where would it be? 2.3 would kind of be right in the middle, right? So as we come up, if we are a 2-tail test, our p-value would be right between those two. So that'd give us a p-value of roughly 0.035. Screen share.